You have found what lights you up. I'm your host, Sunny the Life Coach, and I'm here because I see you searching for something or someone out there to help you feel better. Something to take away the pain that you're feeling, the inadequacies. I know all of the things that happen in life can leave you feeling empty. Your search is over. This podcast is all about finding your own freedom and power to love yourself enough to shine in the ways you were always meant to, the ways in which you are already fully capable of. If you're ready for some real talk, some serious truth bombs, and a few F-bombs, you are in the right place. Let's do this. Let's get lit. Hey there, and welcome to episode 55. Today, I am introducing my friend, Rich Levesque. Rich is a writer, creator, and coach based out of Massachusetts. I'm going to share with you now some parts of his fantastic bio. Then I'm going to tell you some high points about what we'll cover in our conversation today. I love Rich's energy and his ability to be vulnerable, which we don't often see from men in our society. That's why I believe the discussion that we're sharing with you is so crucial and magical. The founder of Beacon Road, his focus is on building a community and ministry for those of us who learned to shut off our magic in order to assimilate to or even survive our worlds. And we do what we know even when we no longer need to. And I was personally drawn to this community because of the real and raw conversations that happen there. Rich believes that as people connect to who they are at their core, rather than the stories they are hardwired to believe about themselves, that we can solve everything we need to in this world, individually and collectively. There is a power to the ripple effects each one of us can create. Once upon a time, he even wrote a book, Becoming a Beacon, Observations from a Guy Working Through His Own Crap. Rich is a traveler at heart, an avid hiker, karaoke legend, possibly in his own mind, and devoted uncle to two teenagers. His areas of expertise include connection and safe space creation, because Rich creates a space that makes people feel at home, relaxed, secure, and so they can drop their defenses because they know that they are welcomed, honored, and respected. You'll see that in our conversation today, that Rich will be able to guide the journey anywhere it needs to go. His superpower is intuition and empathy. He creates a vision to know where to direct his attention and intention. Attention and intention, in order for people to truly feel as though they are seen, heard, understood, and most of all, they matter as they are in the moment. Rich can see not only where someone is, but also what kind of magic they are capable of providing the world. His gifts are words and ideas. Rich is especially skilled at using the written word to express to others that he can connect to who they are, where they've been, and where they dream to explore. He hears often, he sees me. And lastly, his secret weapon is a weapons grade bullshit detector. After 16 years as a 911 operator, emergency dispatcher, and department trainer, that taught Rich a lot of skills, and one of them is how to easily pick up when someone is trying to get away with not exactly telling the whole story. Just saying, be really sure if you want to try it. Now, we're going to talk about both the dark and the light today, the lowest points as well as the highest. I don't think you become a beacon without going through some dark nights of the soul. And Rich is going to tell you that he came to the realization there are lost people all around us. They just hide it well. That's what he says. And that's what I believe. He's going to share what can happen if you just put aside your fear in the moment and get really vulnerable and say what you mean. Guess what? You won't die. He's also about sharing the beautiful things about life. Remember that contrast is so necessary. As you're going to hear, we are all born whole, worthy, and complete as humans. This is something that each of us need to know, and I am certain that sharing this conversation is going to touch you. So let's get to it. Okay, I want to welcome Rich Levesque to the show. Rich, let's start with what lights you up?
Hi, pleasure to be here, Sunny. And what lights me up? Seeing somebody have an absolute aha moment about themselves, what they're capable of, who they are. Especially seeing young people have those ahas. Now, my teenage niece and nephew, or people that younger that I'm mentoring, and really seeing themselves in the way other than what their expectations tell them they are. And on a lighter note, get me outside, put me on a mountain or at the beach or on a hiking trail, and you know that's where that's where I talk to God.
Connecting with nature, connecting with yourself, connecting with God. That's wonderful. I love it. I am a member of your community, the Beacon Road community. And I've told you before that I have a lot of noise in terms of Facebook groups. I'm in a lot of groups, and I keep telling myself that I'm going to cull those groups and, get out of the ones that aren't serving me anymore. It's just one of those things I keep putting off. And somehow your group, and I'm in hundreds, I'm in hundreds of groups, I think. Somehow your group breaks through the noise. And the time that I am on social media, I'm almost always seeing something from that group, and it's so positive and it speaks to me. I love it. How did you come about creating that group?
I love that, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. I do appreciate it. How I came about with that group is, as I started to write and I started to create and I started to get to connect with people, and my inbox would blow up with people telling me, "Oh my goodness, Rich, you're telling my story." And I knew that there was a need for a place, a community where people can connect to what I talk about and share their stories or share their perspectives. And, it's in a way where you can have differing looks, differing beliefs, but at the end of the day, we're all trying to do the best we can to get through the day. And I really think that's the spirit of the group. And as it's built, it's continued to have that element to it where it's safe. It's literally a place you can come and you can drop your guard. You can just show up as yourself whoever that is on any particular day, and you're welcome.
Mm, I love that. I love that. Be yourself, whoever that is on any particular day. Kind of acknowledging that we continue to evolve and kind of change with, I don't know, maybe ocean tides. The fact that you talk about a beacon and, you use in a logo, a lighthouse, it
Do
makes me think of that. It makes, is that why? Is that, tell me about
there's a
beacon.
couple of sure. There's a couple of reasons why I used it. One, the lighthouse is one of my signs when I know I'm going in the right direction, whether it's I see one in the area. I'm from coastal Massachusetts, so they do pop up, or I'll see a lighthouse in somebody's yard, or like a sign seeing like Beacon Lumber
Hmm.
or something to that effect. And so there's that piece there where it's one of my signs and I felt connected to it. And also, one of the most important things to learn when you're in these journeys is you're going to have an instinct to want to try to fix the world and run out and change everything. And ultimately, you can't. The only one you can control is yourself and how you respond and how you grow.
Mhm.
And other people, you know, are going to have that, they have that same control for themselves. And the thing with a lighthouse is it shines the light, and people are welcome to be guided to the light, but the lighthouse stays put. It
Mhm.
doesn't go chasing other boats around.
Mhm.
It stands firm and stays lit.
Mm. I love the light and lighting up, and that is, a big reason why I also connected with you, I think, just the idea of being a beacon and shining a light and all of those wonderful things. You even talk about your area of expertise being connection and safe space creation. So that is what your beacon, that is what you're trying to guide others to when they are ready for it. Yes.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Just meet people where they're at. They're not necessarily going to be able to come to where you want them to be. So if you meet them where they're at and you're a safe space for them, when
Mhm.
they're ready, they'll come.
Mm, amazing. Let's talk about uh, how you, before Beacon Road Community, and I think we'll probably talk about the book that you wrote in just a moment. Before you do the things that you do now, before you were that beacon, what led you to become that? Who were you before?
Well, before I started any of that, I was in a very dark place. I was in a life that felt very much a should. It didn't call to me in any way. I didn't feel like I had a voice. I didn't know what my voice even was at that point. I felt very lonely, very unseen. At the time, I really didn't know how to be seen. And it was a very lonely place. And I, I compensated and I stuffed the pain in a lot of ways that, you know, most of us do, with alcohol, with cigarettes, with food. And I got myself to the point where I was on all kinds of medications. I was almost 100 pounds overweight. I, you know, I had a real chip on my shoulder and very cut off. Very few people got in, and I could be very, very abrasive.
Mm.
And I gotten myself to the point where I really didn't see a future. I was in my early 40s. I was, absolutely nothing was where I hoped it would be. I saw no way out. And I literally decided that it was time for me to make my exit.
Mm.
I had created a means. I had a whole, note written, where I wanted everything. Like, I had it all planned out where I wanted everything to go. And I was at the point where I was literally having my last beer and my last cigarette.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, I remembered my niece and my nephew. And I may have not have had a great relationship with most of the people in my life. There were a few that did get me and did connect to me, but in that space, I couldn't see it. But I could see them. And I knew I could, if I had checked out, the damage I would do to those kids, I I still get emotional thinking about that now. I couldn't do it to them.
Yeah.
So I ripped up the letter and I sat there and I'm just like, okay, if I'm not going anywhere, what now?
Mm.
And I had this, you know, message come through, and I had never thought of anything in this way before. But what came through is there's 7 billion people on this planet. Just on probability, there are people out there like you that are lost, that are lonely, that are disconnected, and you need to serve them. You need to get healthy. And then when you get healthy enough, you need to pay it forward. So, first thing I did was I went to therapy for no reason other than, okay, you're sad, you're upset, you're in this space. I probably should talk to somebody about that. It was really the only thing I knew at the time. And I hit pay dirt with an amazing therapist. She was very empathetic to me and my story,
Mm-hmm.
but she also was amazing at calling out my bullshit when it was necessary. She asked me a question about something I was feeling, and I was bucking her. I wasn't responding to it. And she's just like, okay, that's fine. We'll end the session, but you're going to need to write about it, and you need to bring it next week to session. And then all of a sudden I started like, I can't write. My teachers told me I was a terrible writer. They told me to avoid classes where I had to do writing. And I started with all those old, stories. And she's just like, yeah, that's great. And you're going to write it anyway. And I've already told the receptionist that you can't cancel next week. So I will see you next Wednesday.
Mm.
Like, great. But I did it. I was able to write my way through what I needed to write through, which is amazing because even in my darkest points, I always thought like a writer, but I was always afraid to actually do it because I didn't do well with it in school. So I figured, okay, I wrote it out. I'm going to give it to her. She's going to be like, all right, oh, yeah, you're terrible. Let's never do that again. She reads it out and she looks at me. She goes, you're really good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, sure, right. You're my therapist. You're supposed to say these things. You're supposed to encourage me. Sure. We'll pretend. Cool. But
Mm-hmm.
I kept having assignments every week. And it was either the third or the fourth one. I honestly can't remember that I brought in. She reads it and she starts crying. And I'm just like, wait a minute. Hold on. This is therapy. I'm the client. I'm the one that's supposed to be doing the crying here. What's going on? And she's like, this is, I keep telling you, you have something here. You have a gift. tap into this. And I started, okay, if I'm bringing out emotion in people, maybe there's something there. So I took one or two of the things that I wrote and I put them on my Facebook. And I was started thinking, all right, well, I'm gonna lose like 75% of my friends. I'm gonna get fired from my job. I'm
Oh
like,
my gosh.
I'm giving all these
Yeah.
stories are coming through. And my inbox blows up with people telling me, Rich, you're telling my story. You're talking about me. This is me. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you for saying this. And I was just blown away. And some of the people that responded, and of course, that stuff is, it's in my inbox and that stays private, but big, tough, you know, big dudes who you would never think in a million years would tap into these places were, sharing their stories with me. And I was blown away. And it's like, it was the first time I realized that there's, there are lost people all around me. They just know how to hide it well. And that's when I knew I have to keep going with this, however it looks like. And I kept writing and I started, posting things other places and started connecting with lots of people along the way. And then felt, that's when I felt pulled to, I need to at least write a book, but I didn't know how.
Yeah.
It felt like that was the next piece. And I ended up going into an event um, with a transformational comedian named Kyle Cease. He's somebody that I connected with early on because I was still a baby. I still was really struggling with feeling like I belonged in these worlds, or I couldn't really understand what they were coming from. And a couple of, you know, he's a comic, and he comes at things with, at the time, my two strongest languages, analogies and sarcasm. I could get him.
Mm-hmm.
And I found he was doing a retreat. It was like 3 hours away from me in Western Massachusetts. I'm like, well, okay, here's a sign. So I
Mm-hmm.
took a long weekend and I went to see him. And I didn't, go out of my way to connect with him. I was just perfectly happy just going in, taking notes, having my ahas, and slipping out the back door on my way. I happened to run in, like square into him as I was trying to leave the thing. And he's just like, hi, Rich. Like, he wasn't that good. I had a name tag,
You had a name
but
tag.
and I just ended up projectile vomiting my story to him. And I told him that, I feel like there's a book in me. I don't know how to write anything past 1,500 words. And a book is just kind of like, how the hell do I do that? So he had just finished his first book. And he's like, look, I'm going to tell you exactly what my agent told me. And he told me that no matter what, write a chapter every week, have it finished by Sunday night. And it doesn't matter what exactly it is, just have something, have it done. Look at my book. My first chapter of my book was, why am I writing a book? I don't write. I don't have no idea how to do any of this. And it's just him like freaking out the whole first chapter. So he's like, look, if that doesn't set the bar low for you, nothing will. And so I pondered it. And one of the things I started doing was when I came back from the retreat, I meditated in the morning for, 20 or 30 minutes. And I committed to 30 minutes a day writing. I had old school. I had, broke out notebooks, and I just That was it. I could not walk away from the desk until I finished 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some days it was just, I couldn't get out of my head, and it was literally like, what am I doing? La, 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 la. Other days it was just me venting out, either the day before something would have happened and I'm processing that. But sometimes these nuggets would come through and I would be thinking of something and I would just riff off of something I saw or something I heard or something that happened in a conversation. And I would share what came through to me in the moment. And sometimes it would take me longer than 30 minutes. There'd be days where I'm sitting there and it's just like an hour, 2 hours, and I can't stop.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the good stuff came out. And I had a number of different areas that I ended up speaking about and kind of having conversations with myself over. There'll be things like masculinity, some childhood things that would come up. There was a thing where I riffed about my birthday and like just taking different elements and just going on. And I found I could patch some things together. And by the end of about 90 days, I had more than enough for a book. And then I patched it together and then I hit publish.
That is fantastic. Wow, what a story. You just took me on a roller coaster ride of emotions there. I want to hit on a couple of key points that through that story because wow. First of all, being in a place that is so dark that you're writing the letter and you're having your last beer and cigarette and you're ready to make your exit, as you say. And my listeners and, may or may not, if you haven't listened to every single episode, I've shared my story. I overdosed. I actually did the thing. The problem is, the problem, the problem with taking a lot of pills is it takes a lot of time. And then you
Yeah.
have some time to think about what you've done while you're waiting. And, there is a way to, kind of go back and reverse that, but stomach pumping is not a fun thing. I do not recommend it to anyone. However, I find it so first of all, I appreciate your vulnerability and sharing that part. I really do, because it's not an easy thing, but out of it though comes such beauty, such everything kind of falling into place. It's like you're sitting there and you listen, you really listen, and you have this one thought, and it's about your niece and nephew and what if and what would happen to them, what would it do to them. And that is enough. That one thing is enough to connect you with an amazing therapist with a bullshit meter, which is awesome. And that takes you from a place of being told you can't write to you are writing my story. Like, you are telling my story right now. You are speaking to me. I mean, that is just amazing. It's such an example of the ways that we hold ourselves back because of the lies we are told, either by others, and I'm sure it wasn't necessarily intentional on part of your teachers who told you that you couldn't write. I mean, would they have any idea that this would impact you all of these years later? Um, who knows? But the
Of
point
course.
is, but the point is, you have that, that the seed is planted. The seed is planted that you can't write. And now you are a published author because of everything that you went through and because of the people that you were able to connect with as a result of you not taking that exit. What a beautiful story in every
Thank you for
way.
seeing that.
In every way. And I want to share, I think it's just to kind of point out, I know I shared Rich's bio before we started this conversation with everyone, but I want to just pull a couple just to give you an example of his type of writing style. I haven't read the book yet, but oh my gosh, I'm going to. I just pulled a couple of sentences from the Beacon Road community. And here's what he says. He says, I really believe that if we show the world one person at a time their true worth and they learn to actually believe it, everything will shift. That's one sentence that's pretty much the first sentence. And then there's another where he says, we would naturally help each other up in a way where we can continue to learn and grow into our power and truth, pull others up and guide them to do the same for another. As more of us are in this place, there is no denying the ripple effect. Everything shifts and everyone wins. That is just an example of how you write, how you show up in the world. And this coming from someone who was told he couldn't write and therefore believed it. Now you've become a beacon for other people to believe in themselves too. Amazing. Simply amazing.
Thanks. And and what I really believe is, and just like you said, I wasn't, when they were telling me that I couldn't write and I went to go other places, I really do believe that they were trying to help me succeed. There was good intention there.
Mm-hmm.
People do the best they can with what they know.
Right.
Everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that came through is, in the process, how many gifts in this world are left behind because people just don't know the kind of impact they may have. How many artists, how many writers, how many thinkers, how many musicians, and it's not just in the arts. What if somebody who has this epic idea but doesn't make their way through medical school? The thing that happens that saves so many lives never does.
Mm-hmm.
Or the person that ends up being the statesman or stateswoman that knows how to connect to all these egos and put them at ease and create the win-win policies, and can take, there's so many possibilities that this mind in this moment can't even imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, is that part of the ripple effect that you talk about? Is that like, okay, I have found this for myself and I took a dark path to get there, but I found this for myself. And then you have these questions, how many other people are out there hiding their gifts and they don't even know they're there, suppressing them, numbing them away, running from them, whatever they are doing? Is that part of the ripple that you want to create through the Beacon Road community and your other efforts?
Absolutely, because I truly believe the more I connect with people, the more this is confirmed for me. I really believe that there's a certain point for many of us where we learn that we can't be our true self, and it's usually in childhood.
Mm-hmm.
It can be as a result of a trauma or as a result of a need to assimilate to the environment around you, to be seen and to fit in. Everybody's story is, of course, going to be uniquely theirs.
Mm-hmm.
But what seems to generally happen is our minds build up a wall. They wall us off to who we are at our core, whether you call it your spirit or your soul or your North Star, or if it's something entirely internal. It doesn't matter what you call it. We all have that element, and we learn to cut it off in order to survive. And we learn to deny ourselves. We learn to hate ourselves in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it play out in people stuffing their pain through addictions, through trying to build up and make things look good on the outside to cover up what suffering's going on the inside. You see people being unable to contain their emotions, and they start to lash out at themselves, at those close to them, or even unfortunately, what's happened a couple of times and it's been happening so often in these mass atrocities.
Mm-hmm.
That pain has to go somewhere when
Mm-hmm.
you, and if we connect to that and we connect to the knowing that we're whole and complete as we are, and we learn to work through the traumas and work through the pains and sit with those and let them be heard and let them be understood. And then once they're heard and understood, they make their way along. And in the process, people will go from starting to believe you when you tell them they're worthy to eventually learning to believe that for themselves. And when they get there, it's game on. That's where all the possibility lies.
Yeah. Yeah. The idea that we are all born whole, complete, and worthy humans is definitely something that I believe 100%. And I also appreciate you bringing up the need to fit in and assimilate and all of that. I mean, survive. I mean, literally
Yeah.
survive in our society, in whatever our surroundings, whatever our environment, our immediate environment might be. We learn how to protect ourselves and build those walls, as you said. That is so necessary to be able to see. And you mentioned early on that you did not feel seen. Do you now?
I'm learning to.
Okay. It's a
And it's a
process.
process. It's not a light switch.
Mm-hmm.
It's a process, and everything is. There's no absolutely everything's perfect and clear and it's all smooth sailing from here on out. There's always going to be waves of things that come through. But what happens is you get better and better at seeing it for what it is and stopping to process it and not letting it take over. It starts from, okay, maybe you're in a funk for, it turns into a month and then a week and then a day. And that's where the improvement is. It's learning to get out of it when it comes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always going to be pieces where you're not totally feeling it, but they become less and less, and you become more and more powerful at being able to know what to do and know what to hear, what's, and to tap into what's going on within, and ultimately letting those pieces be heard instead of fighting with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing that I want to talk to you about is like that worthiness and that seeking validation from others, because that is what we learn. I think
Yeah.
we all learn that on some level, and some of us have a really have a harder time breaking free of that than others. But that need for validation is conditioned into us from a very young age. We seek that parents are happy with us if we bring home good grades and gold stars and all of those things. And if we don't, and it could be other things as well. I mean, that's what it was for me. Good grades were like, I know you're capable, so therefore, if you bring home anything less than a B, I'm going to be very disappointed in you. So, of course, that created some perfectionist tendencies in me later. Um, the validation, how do you kind of let go of, or, how do you even just cope? It's a process. Letting go is a process. How do you even cope with needing that validation, needing that love me
Oh my
response
goodness,
from people?
yes. And I I relate, Sonny, to where you're coming from, because that was a lot of my background. And you mentioned grades. That was a big one. You show up with good grades,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of it is, it's impossible to parent without creating a situation where there's a need for validation on both ends.
Mm.
It's part of the human process.
Mm.
And but what ends up happening is we don't know that as we grow and we mature, we can learn to give that to ourselves in the process. So we learn to continue to look for it in external places. It could be in sports. For me, it was trying to play baseball, and then later doing theater, and theater was the first thing in school outside of the classroom where I really excelled.
Mm-hmm.
And the rush of the praise and the rush of the adulation and seeing your name and your picture in the paper,
Mm-hmm.
and people in, and I grew up in a small town, people knowing who you are because the whole town came to the show.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a lot of that, and that continues into adulthood. We do what we know,
Yeah.
from dating to our work environment. I would, hey, I made sure no matter how much I loved or loathed the job, I made sure that I was the best at it.
Mm.
And I, when I got the credit for that, but what was happening is I had learned that that became my identity, and I was dependent on that external praise.
Mm-hmm.
You can't always guarantee that's there. And if it doesn't come, and if people don't see you, what next?
Yeah. What
Until you learn
next?
different.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people, they don't learn. So they try harder, or they, numb the pain that comes with it.
And they think
And
I'm a failure. They think, yeah,
yeah,
I'm not good enough. Obviously, I'm not good enough because no one's validating me. No one's telling me I'm not getting the promotion that I'm trying for. I'm doing everything right. So I must not be enough.
exactly.
Mm.
And what we learn is we've never, ever had control over what anybody else's perception,
Mm-hmm.
reaction, opinion of us. I'm a use what you see is what comes through of me through your filters and your experience.
Yeah.
And the same with me to you. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
same with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And you can never control what those filters show somebody.
Right.
So they may not be able to give you that validation because of something. You remind them of something that happened when they were 10 years old, and there is absolutely nothing you can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
And, but the gift in that, when you get past that point of releasing that control, there is a whole world that you have 100% control over, and that is everything within. You
Mm-hmm.
can completely control how you respond, how you react, what you choose to believe about every experience you come across. You
Yes.
don't have to let somebody else's reaction completely overtake your worth.
Mm.
You get to learn to let it go and accept it for what it is. It doesn't mean it's not going to suck if
Yeah.
somebody you really want their attention, you really want to get to know, somebody you may want to date, they just aren't attracted. It happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it has nothing to do with who you are. It doesn't have anything to do with anything other than they may just be turned on by something that you can't offer, and that's okay.
Yeah, they're just they're not creating the same thoughts within their mind about you that you are with them. because of, as you mentioned, the filters and the experiences and all of that is just, it's just not there. And yes, one of my favorite questions to ask myself, and I also highly encourage my clients to do this, and I mention it often here on this podcast, is ask yourself, what am I making this mean about me? That's kind of a way, I think, to get into the filters. It's like, this behavior that someone else says this or doesn't do or say what you want them to do. What am I making that mean about me? Back to that, this is what I can control. That's right here. It's my favorite question in the
I
world.
love that. What can I make that mean about me? That's a
Yeah.
perfect stop sign.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you start, because what happens is when you start getting into the emotion and getting lost in the reaction, the
And
brain
letting our
starts
stories
spinning
go,
and
letting
letting
our
its stories
stories.
go. And next thing you know, you start turning
Yeah.
into your own speed bag. But that question is just all of a sudden, it's just boom, red light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
Take a
never
step
thought of it
back.
that way before, and I love it. Yes, it is. It's a pause. Let's pause, let's reset, let's really inspect how I am perceiving what's going on, because it's really my
Yeah.
perception. That's what it is. It's my perception, it's my filter. So, this is really good stuff.
And then once you get past that and you get to stop, then ultimately, if it isn't working the way you had expectations,
Yeah.
and we try to talk about dropping expectations and trying to have them, and we get better at that, but ultimately we're human, we
Mm-hmm.
can't help ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
it happens.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we have to step it back, and when things don't go according to expectation, that doesn't mean that we're at the end of the story and that the bad guy wins. There's We don't know what opens up for us because the thing we wanted didn't happen.
Yeah. Yes. I like to call those detours too. It's like, okay, just because the thing we wanted didn't happen, or it didn't happen the way we wanted it to happen, that doesn't mean that something even better isn't waiting for you.
Exactly.
It's like everything is going to fall into place the way it's meant to.
It always does.
Yeah. Yeah. One more thing I want to talk about, and is you said before, in previous conversations with us. Well, first of all, I want to point out that you are very authentic and vulnerable. And again, back to your community, because at one point, you're willing to put something out there that says, I'm not okay, but I'm going to be. I don't want anything. I just want to say it. Let me just say it and put that out there. I'm not okay right now. And kind of like therapeutically writing about it, by the end of it, you're like, okay, this is better. And so I just want to come back to kind of like acknowledging that pain in the moment and just kind of feeling into it, and how you do that. Do you always write about it? Is that because now that you have found your voice through writing, the one that you didn't even know was there? Um, is that something that is that one of the many tools that you use? Or, I mean, tell me
I
about it.
do. A lot of my process is through writing. I make it a point every morning I still keep the habit of trying to journal at least for a little bit every morning. It may not necessarily come up with be an idea that I need to put out there, but it lets me just let go of things that I might be carrying, stuff that I might have struggled with through the night.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird because the way my body works, when I go to bed, I'm usually in a really, high, good place. I'm in a very, and I've never been a morning person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always at my grumpiest, and that's when a lot of those voices tend to try to sneak in.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that, I'm aware of that. So what I do is I make myself sit and kind of process through what's going on, and I just get it out of my head and onto paper.
Love it.
And the instance that you were talking about, Sunny, is I was every so often I'll go through a real down patch. Either a lot of times there's a transition involved, and in this particular one, I was helping to coach a very busy intensive for a whole week. I'm like constantly on Zoom calls with people. I'm on constantly doing Facebook lives and Zoom rooms, and it's going nonstop. And all of a sudden, like the next Monday and the next Tuesday, all of a sudden I had a lot less going on. And sometimes I inevitably crash when I get to that space, and I start getting those self-defeating thoughts and those, sabotaging thoughts. And I was aware enough in this instance to be like, look, I'm not the only one that feels this and processes this. And a lot of times when we talk about it, it's after the fact when we're not in that space. We talk about it when we're in our creative space. We never talk about it when we're in the middle of it. Yeah. And I felt pulled to be like, look, I'm in the process right now. This is the best time for me to explain it. I wasn't looking for, like I said, I knew I was going to be out of it. I probably would have been out of it by the end of the day. Yeah. I knew that. I knew I was together. I knew I wasn't in any danger or anything like that. I felt like in this moment, I could bring a perspective to this that I can't when I'm not in it. And I felt really pulled to share that experience and to show people that if you're going through these lulls and these downs, you're not alone.
Yes.
I do too. And this is what mine looks like.
Yes.
And I love that it opened up a conversation for people that they could share what theirs looked like and connect on that level, and we could all see each other. And that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, to be seen. It's another way to be seen, but and it's also, but yes, to share that, to say you are not alone is so very powerful, as well as you felt called. So following your intuition, listening to your inner guide in that moment, and just doing the thing without questioning it, just doing it was very, very powerful. Thank you for allowing me to share a little spoiler from your group. But that's the kind of thing that, I mean, I want the listeners to know, because that's the last thing that I want to talk about. Go ahead and wrap this up, because I want to be respectful of your time. You have all kinds of people to connect with. You're always doing that, and I love it. That is the kind of thing that you will find in Beacon Road community. That is why I'm saying it is where I am drawn. It does really serve as a beacon, at least in my feed, because, my algorithms work the way I want them to work. Everybody complains about Facebook algorithms. Mine are beautiful. I mean, they are, because I react to beautiful things. And so I get to see more of it. I don't react to.
That's the thing. You always get to make choices.
Yeah.
And,
so
you can lovingly unfollow things.
Lovingly unfollow. I love that. Yes. Yeah, you can. So you can, the algorithm works wonderfully for me. I don't see very much negativity at all. But again, there's a lot of beauty out there. But Beacon Road keeps coming up to the surface. So I just want to, is anyone allowed in your community, or how do you handle that? Do you encourage?
Yes. What I do is I will, ultimately, we do filter a little bit. Ultimately, I want to make sure that the people that are in the community are safe. So I do make sure that I look to see that it's not a troll account. I do my best to try to, make sure somebody's angry ex partner isn't coming in to stir up the pot or something like that. So
Hmm.
ultimately it's about the safety, and but like 99% of the time that's not a thing. If you join, and I ask people to answer a couple of questions, and it's really only, I'm not looking for an answer. It's okay, if you're answering these questions, that means you're an actual human, so come on in.
Hmm. Okay. Humans welcome, trolls not. And it is a beautiful community. You're doing a great job of moderating all of that. It's a great space. So if
I do, and I have a team of five people that are helping me out with that. So if
nice.
I'm busy, there's eyes in there all the time, even if they're not necessarily mine if I'm busy.
Wonderful. So this is your baby, as you say, that this community is, and with all of the other things that you have going on, it is your heart. And so I wanted to definitely highlight that for those and that are interested in finding a connection, a safe space, and a knowing that you are not alone.
Exactly.
That's what that is. So, oh, so good. I think I mentioned your book title at the very beginning, but we'll go ahead and add it back again now. Becoming a Beacon: Observations from a Guy Working Through His Own Crap. I will add a link to both the book as well as the community in the show notes. And if
Absolutely.
anyone else would, how was anyone connect with you besides those two places, Rich?
Um, let's see. Probably the easiest way to find me is on Instagram. My handle is Beacon Road, the number 10.
Hmm. Okay.
I'm also on Twitter, Clubhouse, and a lot of the other suspects too.
Okay. All right. We'll add your stuff. I think you have a link tree too. We could,
And
we
to
could just
reach
add
me
that.
directly, the best way is probably to shoot me a DM on Instagram.
Perfect. Okay. So that's what we will add in
Awesome.
addition to the community link and anything else. Okay. Any other parting words for us?
Um, just remember, wherever we're at, we're all doing the best we can in the moment with what we have to work with.
Yeah.
Some days we have these amazing craftsman tools. Some days it's this rusty set of screwdrivers we got at a yard sale for 50 cents. But it always it always shifts, it always changes. Just keep going. Just keep going. It always gets better.
I love it. I love it. You are a beautiful person. Thank you so much for sharing your story here. I am so grateful to know you and I
Thank you
appreciate
for
you.
having me.
All
I had a
right.
great time talking to you.
Thanks, Rich. Wow. That was really something. I'm so honored to put these messages out into the world. I am particularly honored to have a guy on here to speak with you today. And I hope that you recognize that we have all of these societal expectations. We may be to the point of just beginning to scratch the surface of seeing what we have been through and what we're going through as women. But let's not forget our men. They are taught from such a tender age to suck it up and keep it in. And my God, I can't even imagine the shit they are carrying around. So much gratitude for Rich coming here and telling his story. I know there are many more of you out there. May you find your voice however it calls you. I am continually learning how important it is to listen to the signals, reach out, and connect with other humans who are actively out there demonstrating kindness, compassion, empathy, all of the things that we seek. Have the audacity to do that yourself. And I know that Rich and I have created ripples through this talk and that we will continue to do so because we are channeling our purpose, allowing intuition to be the guide, working through our shit all the time. All of these things are happening at the same time, and it's amazing. Yes, it's a journey. Just be aware that there are beacons out there just waiting for you to see them, just waiting for you to find the light. And I do mean that Rich's group truly does break through the noise of my social media channels, and I do believe there's a reason for that. Check out his community on Facebook. The link is in the show notes. Yes, we all just want to be seen, and there are people out there who will see you. There are people out there who can't wait to see you embrace the process. Know that it's not a switch, but that you absolutely have the power within you to light up and shine on.